Hello and welcome back to the Advancing Healthcare Innovation Show. I am your host, Michael Stamatinos, and if you're new to us, welcome. It's great to have you here. We're just having some great conversations with real leaders that are painstakingly reshaping the future of healthcare. And we're pretty passionate about a few different areas. We're passionate about healthcare innovation, naturally, leadership, access, and transformation. And if it's your first time tuning in, let me just sort of take a quick step back and just sort of peel back some layers of the onion to give you a little bit more about what we're trying to get done here. So we're focused on bringing real stories of leadership and innovation to life, not just stuff that you read about, but the unsexy stuff that really truly matters. And we want to give our guests the opportunity to share their stories with our community and ultimately with the world. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check out any of our historical interviews, wherever you are, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button now so that any of the new interviews come directly to you. So before we get started today, I want to talk about a word that definitely gets tossed around a lot. And I mentioned it earlier, transformation. You hear it a lot. You hear it in news headlines, boardrooms, press releases. You see it on slides. I see it at conferences that we go to. But if you've ever been inside of an organization that is really going through it, you know that the real story looks very different. Transformation is messy. Um, when it comes to operational friction, maybe people were used to doing things a certain way. Now all of a sudden you're saying, hey, I used to do it. Like that's not how we're doing it anymore. You got to do it another way. And somewhere inside all of that, leaders, they kind of have to figure out how to make things better. And inside of this chaos, they kind of have to distill it down and make things super simple and clear so they can execute and function, et cetera, et cetera. So today's guest has been living inside of this chaos and has made a career out of thriving in it. Angi Jennings is the Senior Director of Organizational Excellence at Cano Health. And over the past, I don't know, call it multi-decades, she's been deeply involved in this kind of work. And I'm excited about kind of peeling back behind the curtain to see, what happens after a turnaround is announced or after an acquisition, and what does it really take to kind of align teams that honestly really weren't really designed to work together? And how do you move an organization forward from, hey, we're just about to close our doors and we're barely hanging on to survive, into like, hey, like we gotta shift gears here and let's execute. So that is what I'm excited about selfishly talking about today. I think that it revolves around a lot of accountability, aligning strategy, and a whole host of other things. So we're gonna pick Angie's brain on that. And I think what I respect about her perspective the most is that she's actually willing to come onto the show and actually share this publicly. So thankful in advance. And Angie, it's great to see you. Welcome
Oh,
to the show.
thank you, Michael. Thank you very much.
All right. So, we've kind of talking about, your title and all that other stuff. I want to start somewhere else. So
Sure.
I want you to take me inside of the moment, Cano Health, where it's like, all right, this is either going to work
Mhm.
or this whole thing is going to fall apart. Like, what was happening? Where were you? Who was around the table? And like, take me through that because I know that you've gotten the band back together to kind of re-engineer this thing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. I would love to. I am privileged in my career to have worked with some pretty innovative and foundational leadership. And in my
Okay.
process of learning through my career, um, you begin in my stage in my career learning what you very much enjoy working with and working for, and what
Hmm.
perhaps maybe it's just not interesting as much anymore. And so when you mention where were we, what was going on, listen, Cano Health is re-energized, is
Mm,
reinvigorated. They, of course, have come out of bankruptcy, and a new
hmm
leadership team has been put in place to regenerate the culture, to simplify operations, and to really embed the value-based care strategy in the day-to-day work when we interact with patients. And so
mm,
I'm thrilled to be a part of that leadership team again. I missed it when I was venturing on and learning about more parts of healthcare and doing my thing.
yeah.
But I am thrilled to be back and excited to share any of this with you.
All right. So you kind of let's just, I think of you as like, SEAL Team Six. You get the team in there
Mm.
and you get jettisoned in. What what happens in the first like 30 days? Like, can you take me through like what's going on inside of your mind? Like, what are you evaluating? What are you trying to fix first? Or do you just observe? Like, take me through your thinking when you have to go in somewhere and you got to transform something.
Observation is key. You need to get to know the players, need to understand the landscape, need to respect the culture and history that they came from. So
Yeah.
as you begin to create and formulate your approach, you have clear operational understanding of where they are, what they're doing, and how they're going about it. And so some
Mm,
of the things that we ventured on were what are the core roles in a clinic? What are the responsibilities and accountabilities of those roles in clinic? What
hmm
do we have documented about them? What
mm,
workflows are they involved in? Is there some sort of racy diagram that shows the interaction of those roles together? And let's begin talking about it in large leadership groups so that we can level set accountability and understanding. That's how we
mm,
began, as we literally workflow planned and mapped out our core service areas. And so
mm,
in a multi-site primary care clinic, it's things like an annual wellness visit and a new patient visit and a same-day sick visit and a pre-op visit. There are components, clinical and administrative, that go along in the completeness of each of
hmm
those service offerings. And so making sure the whole group understood what are those offerings, what's involved in those offerings, how do we do it, or more like, how should we do it? And get
mm,
consensus and gain understanding. Document and then say, how do we roll this out? What does this look like for us?
mm. Okay. So you're taking the lay of the land.
Mhm,
You're then formulating these
mhm,
into standard operating procedures.
mhm.
You're then communicating this out. Is there a timeline that you try to adhere to when it comes to, you know, getting these little wins early? Like, how soon are you trying to get these little wins to build and rebuild culture?
Momentum is key. Momentum is key. So understanding the trajectory of the momentum, because you have to
Mm,
understand innovation isn't about an announcement. We're rebuilding, we've got a new leadership team. It's
right.
about the sustained execution and all of those little wins that you start talking about. And earning and building trust. Cano's gone through a number of leadership teams over a number of the most recent 4 to 5 years. And
Yeah.
because of that, the associates that serve our patients every single day
hmm
are weary. I don't
Mm,
blame them, right? They care
mm,
deeply. And that is what I find so admirable about our associates is they care so deeply about our patients and our patient population. But boy, were they tired of all this change, regroup, restart, redo. And that's very frustrating for an associate when all they want to do is care, in our instance, is for a senior citizen in their healthcare journey.
mm.
And so I recognized clarity was the number one issue. And so when you come with an inquired group of businesses that have
Right.
operated singularly for multiple years,
Right.
clarity and
And we're
simplicity.
likely competing against one another.
Very likely they were competing against one another. And so clarity and simplicity is the first step in that cultural turnaround.
Mm,
Um, we began first to anchor on what we know best, which is patient care. We know who our patients are. We respect tremendously the cultural environment they come from.
hmm
And that is what we anchored our understanding. And as long as we keep that patient front of mind in every
hmm
decision we make, we know we're all going to face and go towards the same direction. And
mm.
so anchoring that first was very important.
Anything that you've seen throughout your career now that you start to see patterns and you're like, all right, I've seen this before. I'm going to go to this playbook. Has there been anything that you've seen now in this recent turnaround that's like super surprising? You're like, all right, kind of in uncharted territory right now.
Well, what's interesting to me in my career, it isn't per se the industry or what we are doing in the turnaround, but for me at my age in my career, I am now learning alongside of folks 20 or 30 years younger than I am. And so the
Mm,
learning styles and um, approach in which you approach an adult learner is changing and evolving. And so, what
yeah.
might have worked me as a Generation X person might not be as relative or as quick to key into as a different approach. And so,
Mm,
really appreciating and leaning into the generations of your associates and what spurs and interests them is what I've recognized we need to really put our arms around.
hmm. Do you think the communication style varies when you're talking to Gen Y, Gen Z, and how they
Mhm.
learn, how they speak? How,
Yeah.
how do you how do you do that? I mean, do you kind of have an ambassador of each in each of the generations? You're like, hey, I need to know how to like talk to Sally, talk to Joe, get the best out of them. Like walk me through the thinking of that because that's fascinating to me. We're in a work environment now where we have multiple generations all kind of coming together all at once. And then you
I-
pile on top of that a turnaround, a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
Like that's an interesting stockpot of things coming together.
Yeah. I can give you almost a very granular thing that came up today, if you really want
Okay.
to know a
Yeah,
decision.
please. Let's do it.
A key component of all primary care offices is an annual wellness visit.
Yep.
An annual wellness visit. Most of us in our healthcare journey get those. And as folks realize, it's a more comprehensive visit clinically, involves labs and screenings and other items, the questionnaires that you answer over
Yep.
time. And we
Right.
refresh this every year. Coming from an acquired group of businesses, they did annual wellness visits a little differently. And what a complete annual wellness visit looks like might be different. So
Mm,
standardizing all the components necessary that we'd like to document and capture is important. So bringing this to a generational standpoint, we have a IT project manager who
hmm
has discovered for free an app online that point and click walks people through how to use our electronic medical record in very quick and voiceover narrated demonstrations. So in 10 clicks, you can see all of the components and pieces necessary for success. In my
Amazing.
day, it would have been printed papers with screen grabs where then someone in learning and development has had to overwrite
Yeah.
instructions and then I'm flipping. It's a little more cumbersome maybe perhaps in folks that I'm accustomed to learning and development. Here, we can express the same messages in a very short time frame on almost a minute bite. And what's helpful as healthcare changes and as regulations or codes or
Mhm.
responsibilities change, we can interchange in a plug and play environment with modules of learning that we couldn't do before.
And how often is this retraining? I feel like it's not just like, hey, we train once, but it's like it's a constant cadence.
It
Can you
is.
talk about as a leader, the you're doing a lot of the same thing over and over again. It's not like, I mean, you're obviously problem solving and troubleshooting, but can you maybe hone in on a little bit of that? Because that might not be something that people realize when it comes to transformation. You're doing a lot of the little things over and over and over again.
That's exactly what it is. Reiterating workflows, reiterating expectations, communicating frequently. Two things I think we've done really well so far at Cano
Hmm.
is twofold. Number one, we have a very healthy data and analytics platform. The
Hmm.
folks in acquired businesses often don't have what we determine as clean data or something simple to take a look at because maybe they've not integrated all of the systems to talk to
Right.
one another to provide that environment. We have taken multiple locations of data, put it into one, display it on a Power BI
Hmm.
presentation format, and give access to all of our frontline associates. And then the
Mm.
first teaching, the first iteration, when I go around and did our Cano Way, is we begin talking about how data mirrors behavior in the clinic. And then we
Right.
did something even more important that I think is key to our leadership success is
Hmm.
they tied those important behavioral metrics to an incentive plan, and we pay all the way down to the associate level. So when
Mm.
you change behavior, you increase your bonus. And we pay it out very frequently for bonuses, meaning quarterly. So I
Mm.
only have to do 3 months worth of work and do better behavior to directly see in my paycheck how my behavior's changed and improve the team as a whole.
What are what are some of those I'll call them sleep well at night metrics that you look at to know that a transformation is either on track or off track?
Oh, well, what makes me sleep better at night is our transition of care metrics. It is important
Mm.
in a primary care office when our patients go to some alternate level of care, emergency department, inpatient, SNF, that we, as their quarterback of their care, stay in real close communication with them so that when
Mm.
they are finished with whatever acute issue they're dealing with, we come back to us and then we put our arms around them and make sure med reconciliations done. We understand new diagnoses, new test results, those kinds of things.
Okay.
We really weren't accurately looking at the measurement of all of our patients. Are we calling 100% of them to make sure they're doing okay? We just didn't have
Okay.
visibility to it. And when we
Mm.
first had visibility to it, Michael, as with many things, wasn't great. Okay, wasn't great. We weren't as making ourselves proud. But I'll tell you, within a quarter's worth of time, we are beyond our benchmark that we set for ourselves. I think once
Mm.
people then understood, wow, when I do this daily and document this and this ends up happening. They're putting those workflow, very unsexy workflow pieces
Yeah.
together to go, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of I worked under a really awesome operator, a guy named Rick, and he had a saying, military guy.
Mhm.
He's like, "Hey, what you inspect, they
Yeah.
respect."
Yeah. That's got, yes. 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 Only
Okay.
what you measure improves.
Yeah.
Same
So
concept.
the transitions of care, what other any other metrics that you were really focused on?
Phone metrics primarily. Listen, if our patients don't know that we're receiving their information in their call and responding timely, then they're not going to trust us and develop that
Mm.
really strong bond that we
Mm.
require in a value-based care relationship. And so call metrics were very important, understanding those. Um,
Interesting. N-
access. So you
You,
mentioned earlier.
yeah, but you also you said a couple times, look, when we've acquired practices,
Yeah,
I'm curious, do they all move over to similar systems or do they stay on disparate systems? Like, because that's a huge
yeah,
undertaking, especially if you're doing a bunch of acquisitions and you're rolling them into, you
yeah.
know, one tech. Talk to me about the tech aspect of transformation.
Yeah, that's painful. We are going through that now. And I can share in our circumstance with those acquired businesses. Fortunately, they all utilize the same electronic medical records, the same vendor. And
Oh,
so
no
with
way.
that vendor,
Okay.
they stacked the various iterations on top of it
Hmm.
versus clarifying the needs and streamlining choices and workflow within the mechanics of the system. So they
Mm.
were able to operate separately, yet use the same system. The same fields might not have been the same. I might have documented over here, you might have documented over there, which is then makes reporting and analytics very, very difficult, which was their issue. So now we are prioritizing and understanding a couple fold. One, fundamentally from a configuration standpoint, what is important to us as a business, and is that
Hmm.
is reflective into our tool that we
Mm.
utilize to execute our service line. Number one. Number two, um, of the what are the core pieces in that EMR that we need to rectify, build consensus around, standardize,
Yeah,
and hit those methodically. And so we've been doing that over the last 4 to 5 months, but have probably another year's worth of work to uncouple things that perhaps might have been in a certain way, um,
right,
to make it
right.
more optimal.
You mentioned about the momentum of wins.
Yeah.
Right? There's something to be said about speed. But speed and healthcare,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't always mesh well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that how do you kind of keep your cool around that? Do you get frustrated when things aren't moving along as quickly as you'd like them to? I mean, what gets you kind of what
When
keeps you?
strategy connects clearly to frontline actions,
Mm.
meaningful progress happens. And so, having participated in these types of transformations in my past, I have the experience to understand there's a period of time when it feels like things or appears as if things are very
Yeah,
shock and unstable. But
yeah,
that is everyone's internal change device trying to zone in and reconcile, like, whoop, new way to go. We're going to have to do things differently.
yeah.
And once we provide an atmosphere of psychological safety,
Mm.
and express what accountability really means, that's when traction begins to occur. And so let me share with you what I mean by accountability,
Yeah, give me an example, even a
if that's
story. I think that'd
okay.
be awesome.
To
Yes.
me, accountability is not a manager or a leader pointing their finger, shaking their
Mm.
finger at an associate, telling them what to do. Matter of fact, if any of our managers do that, I smack their finger. That's just not what we do. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Accountability is the associate conversation with each other about what is the optimal patient experience that we want to achieve. And it might be,
Mm.
hey, associate, we're not doing this consistently like we should be. Can I help you understand why we're not doing things similarly? Or, hey, did you realize when you're doing things differently, it affects how I do my job? If
Mm.
we can't provide an environment where our associates can communicate clearly and respectfully and have courage to do those things, then we failed as leaders. That's my biggest role, is to provide an incubator during change for that psychological safety. Now, that doesn't mean correction doesn't occur.
Right,
Correction
right.
occurs because course correction has to occur. But it's not because anyone has bad intent or doesn't want to change. They forgot, they didn't understand, or it wasn't clear enough. So we double
Yeah.
back and we figure it out, thankfully, because we have data and analytics that look at leading indicators and not lagging indicators, so we can course correct pretty quickly.
I love that you brought up psychological safety a couple different
Mm,
times because I'm
yep.
familiar with Amy Edmondson's work.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting in she lectured, senior lecture, and she talked about, look, psychological safety is not about being nice.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
like you can be kind to someone and still have really high standards.
Of course. Of
So
course.
I think that's something to be said about having real talk,
Yeah.
about being like, hey, we're not we're not hitting the mark here.
Yeah.
If if a transformation is not going as well, and I'm sure you've been a part of some that haven't gone well, is it usually a strategy problem or is it more of a leadership like issue?
Find it a clarity issue. Clarity is my word for 2026. I know you and I
All
have
right.
spoken
Love
in
it.
the past about words and meanings and intention around words before. Clarity is my word for 2026. And I
Yeah.
often find when we are going astray, we've got to pull that leadership team together and clarify our understanding. Hey, we thought we were doing this. Do we need a change of direction? If we need a change of direction, we can pivot. Nothing wrong with pivoting.
Yeah.
But are we all on the same page? And then how is that echoed down to the associate? And
Mm.
really immerse yourself out. We encourage our leaders at Cano to get out in those clinics. You're not going to know how this business runs, and unless you are out in those clinics watching and participating in how we take care of patients. That's
How
what's
many
most
how many
important.
clinics are there now?
67.
Mm.
67.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta, and what's interesting, because you mentioned about sort of just spread across a wider range.
Mm.
Do you feel like there's sometimes in some of the clinics there's like a micro culture inside of these areas, and you go to one region and there's a micro culture, but they
Yes.
all kind of roll up to the larger culture? Is
Mhm.
that all contingent on, that clinic manager and the localized leadership?
It is. It very much is. And you can tell a discrepancy on some districts and territories do some things very, very well. Others do other things very well, but getting them all to show their strengths at the same time is really our secret sauce. And so,
Hmm,
teaching the why. Our
hmm,
big first educational effort road show that I did around to all of the clinics is for them to understand a
yeah,
we have a big job ahead of us. Time is not our friend. Okay. We have to standardize and simplify our workflows so that we can all easily get on the page. Now, I
yeah,
tell our team very candidly, this is going to be a long and painful process. I share with them very candidly.
you're very
You
honest
should
with them.
ask
You got to
many
be
of
honest.
them. When we started coaching and doing our training back in November, I said to them, give me until August or April, rather. Give me to April, 6 months.
Hmm,
It's going to feel some kind of way at Cano. But
hmm.
when we reach April, it's almost like a light switch goes off in my experience watching these transformations. Associates then go, well, we should always done it this way. Or, well, this is a lot simpler than we used to do it. But it takes time. And I share with our leaders, please don't get discouraged, right? Because this takes time. It didn't get this way overnight. Okay. So
Right,
it takes
right.
time for us to do bite-sized pieces so that it makes sense to
Hmm.
be able to handle this change.
I mean, look, transformation, it puts enormous pressure on
Mhm.
leaders.
It does.
Uh, how do you deal with pressure?
Well, I share, you have to fill your own cup. You have to know what brings you joy. I share with our associates and I take the advice myself. This is hard. This is hard work that we do. It is consistent
Yeah.
and it's monotonous. Figure out what brings you joy. Go see a movie, play with your kids, play with your grandkids.
Mm,
Paint, take a walk, do some exercise, all of the things. But to remember, when you're going through this change, drink your water, get your sleep at night, take your vitamins. All of those things are important because this will wear on you. Change is tough. And you can't have associates not feel strong
mm,
emotionally to endure this because the frontline folks, boy, they're gonna spin out of control here and there and everywhere. We have that in clinics, so you gotta take care of yourself. As the airline industry says, put your mask on first, right? Do
what's
that.
been, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Oftentimes people don't.
yeah.
I'm curious, what's been the hardest leadership moment for you, personally during this journey at Kano?
I'd probably say in every organization I've worked in, the toughest journey is saying goodbye to well-intentioned associates that might
Mm,
not fit the paradigm of where we're at today and where we need to go.
Mm.
Sometimes, despite your best training and despite your best efforts of coaching and counseling, sometimes either the role has advanced beyond somebody's capability, or perhaps we're going a different direction, and that might fundamentally be different than what the associate thought. And having to say no when you've built and created valuable personal relationships. That's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough for the
Yeah.
team.
Well, who,
Necessary, but tough.
so you said a couple of things that just, I've got a dear friend of mine, and he, runs a sizable business. And when he was sort of sharing, he's like, look, I classify people in three buckets. First is they don't know their job,
Mhm.
or they don't know how to do their job. He's like, and the third is they just don't care. It's like the first two are fixable.
Yeah.
They're totally fixable. He's like, the third one is unforgivable. So like you said, it sounds like, people are weeding themselves out, and it doesn't make it any easier on the leader, because that's never an easy conversation
Never.
situation. People's livelihoods are on the line. I guess
Right.
who helps you get through those moments? Because I feel like leadership is a lonely job.
Well, we rely on each other. I'm glad to be a part of a leadership team that can call each other and be like, today sucked. Today I had to let two people go, and I hate it. I don't like it.
Mm,
And
mm,
have that safety in your friend at work to be able to go, I hate when I have to do that too. It does suck. And but tomorrow's a new day, and we not as if we don't pay homage to what just happened, but this is a business and we've got to continue to move forward, because the longer we can turn this around, the better we can be for our patients, and the better we
mm.
can be a large employer in South Florida for a number of healthcare workers.
When do you know that, like, things have been healed, turned
Oh,
around?
healed. Listen, I could tell you when I first met the associates out in the clinics, when I met those front desk people and those medical assistants, those referral coordinators and our drivers, I
Hmm.
knew Cano had something special. I knew we could do it. Their
Mm.
infectious enthusiasm, they just were like, just tell me the right way. Just I can do this. Just we can do this. Just quit giving me conflicting information. I mean, in so many words, my words,
Yeah,
not their words.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I knew then we could turn this around. Again, time is not our friend, right? Everyone wants results when you're a part of a larger organization. You don't own it yourself. You're responsible to reporting to a larger group, and time is not our friend. And so we gotta hustle. What maybe might have had a little more time for some jogging and getting that muscle memory in shape. We're sprinting. We got to sprint. And come on, we're going to drag people along with us. We got to do it.
So if you could sort of anonymously sit in a break room in one of
Hmm.
the clinics
Yeah,
for a day,
yeah.
what what would you want to hear the staff saying?
I'd want to hear joy. I'd want to hear development of interpersonal relationships. I'd want to hear them talk about their kids, their dogs, their outside life. Um, I'd want to hear them being the supportive human and kindness that we should extend to everyone. That's what I want to hear, because in that atmosphere, change and positivity flourishes when
Hmm.
there's that amount of psychological safety. That's I know then there it is unstoppable at that point.
For the majority of this conversation, this whole transformation, it's about people.
Oh,
It's
yes,
it's it's
yes,
100% about people.
it is.
The other stuff usually sorts itself out. You're talking about
Mhm,
aligning systems and technology, and there's a time and a
mhm,
place for it.
mhm.
But it sounds like foundationally, what you're doing is really alignment around people.
Yeah,
And change is difficult.
it
It's
is.
really difficult. It's just not changing is terminal.
Correct. Unfortunately. That's right. That's right. That's correct.
Who do you look to for, like, inspiration? Or there are other industries that you look at outside of healthcare where you kind of get ideas and bring them in? Like, talk to me about your mental model of thinking
Mhm,
and going through
mhm.
transformations.
The hospitality industry is probably the first place I look to, specifically about patient engagement, patient experience, customer service, Team dynamics. I was fortunate to have worked at a company called Bloomin' Brands, the parent
Mm,
company of a lot of our founder-based chains in this country. And what I learned from those people is that you can have fun at work and do
hmm
meaningful things. And so
mm.
hospitality people are great. I love their attitude. I love their energy. And I think a lot of other industries can reap benefits from understanding what motivates these people. How do they get so great and positive, and do hard work? I think that's great.
Yeah. I mean, you
Hospitality.
mentioned energy.
Yeah.
Energy is an enthusiasm
Mm,
and infusing that.
yeah.
And that's hard to do for a long stretch of time by
Mhm.
yourself. What I find is that when you kind of have this compound effect of you can get one, and then all of a sudden now two are enthusiastic, and those two remain consistent. It's that can change the
The
entire
trajectory.
feel of a
It does.
whole organization.
Mhm.
And we've had a few folks that have come on the show, and Michael Craftsman and Jeff Ellman, a company called Urban Bound. Shout out to Urban Bound. They said something in one of our conversations where they said, culture is caught. It's not
Mm,
taught. It's
mm.
caught. And that has always
Yeah.
stuck with me.
Yeah.
I'm curious for someone that's coming in from the outside initially
Mm.
and you're trying to re-engineer culture.
Mhm.
What do they want? What do you want them to catch from you?
Authenticity. I think that's the element that people bond to initially.
Mm,
I, I very much am a curious human. I've been my
right,
whole life a curious human, and I'm curious about what has gotten these people to this point. I respect their journey. I respect the lessons they have learned. They know a lot more about what they do than I certainly do. And so listening and appreciating what they do, and then sharing and trying to share back to them how maybe a change in strategy or a change in
right.
direction truly supports what they already were thinking all along. It's just now
Mm,
a different way to reframe it or reposition it.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. How can people follow along your story, the journey? Give us a little bit of a take on how people can stay connected and stay in contact and learn more about Kano and what you guys are doing.
Well, we are launching our new website. Hold tight. We're getting a new one there. I'm always welcome folks to have questions or interest about Cano Health or value-based care.
Hmm
I love talking about operations. As you can tell, it's just a part of who I am. And so please feel free at any time to reach out to me directly. But Cano's going in big places. We are fundamentally changing how we operate business while really focusing on that patient. And so I'm excited to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Just my last question is like, what do you see? Like, where do you see hope for healthcare?
Mm,
Where do you see it going? Like, if we're looking back, we're looking ahead rather 10 years from now.
yeah.
And somebody's that's worked with you during this, I'll call it this period of transformation, and they're
Yeah.
reflecting on that chapter of their career. What would you
Mm.
hope that they say about how you led, during this time?
Um, what I hope people realize, change is necessary. Um, a lot of people understand value-based care strategy.
Hmm
But when you translate it into daily clinic operations and behaviors and
hmm
document it and explain it in a simple and clear way, um, every associate then becomes their own ambassador for the type of culture and care that we're doing. So I
Right,
think it's leadership's responsibility to make this as clear and simple as possible so that they can move this message forward in
right.
alignment to what we're doing. That's as closely as you can get the message to the front line is what I hope for healthcare happens long term.
Mm. I think. First off, this has been an amazing discussion. Got it. There was several writer downers, I would like to call several.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think one of the things that stood out to me during this conversation was um, how different transformation looks when you're inside of it. I
Yeah.
think there's a perception from the outside of what it is, and I think from the
Mhm.
outside you can say it's strategy, it's
Mhm.
slides, it's like, hey, we're doing these memos and announcement. Uh, and I said it just momentarily just earlier. It's from the inside. It's really all about people, and
Mhm.
it always has been about people, and it's about culture. It's about having a cadence of accountability and
Mhm.
1,000 of these small decisions made every single day by teams,
That's
you
right.
know, trying to
That's
move in the
right.
same direction. And that creates
Yeah.
this flywheel effect.
Mhm.
And yeah, this has been a really meaningful discussion. So if you're listening to this and you found this conversation helpful, would you mind sharing it? Honestly, sharing it with your network, sharing it with people that you care about that are also operators. And if there is a topic that you would like for us to explore, or even a leader that you want to hear from, feel free to drop me a note, leave a comment. We do read them, we pay attention to them. So remember, this is a platform that's it's not just content. Like this is about community. And if we want to kind of a rising tide raises all ships, like we all got to work together. So thank you for listening. Keep building with purpose, and we will see you next time on the Advancing Healthcare Innovation Show.